Have you ever witnessed the raw power of a mother's love in the wild? Where instinct becomes fury and desperation transforms into unstoppable force. Deep in the heart of Africa's most remote wilderness, a scene unfolded that would challenge everything we thought we knew about nature's hierarchy. What happened next wasn't just survival. It was a display of maternal courage so fierce, so unbelievable, that even the most experienced wildlife experts were left utterly speechless. The Mbongo Forest Reserve stretches across the misty highlands of Central Africa like a forgotten emerald kingdom. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Ancient mahogany trees tower skyward, their massive trunks disappearing into a canopy so thick that sunlight filters down in golden beams, creating an almost cathedral-like atmosphere. Twisted vines cascade from branch to branch, forming natural bridges where colorful birds dart between shadows. The air hangs heavy with moisture and the rich scent of decomposing leaves, while the distant sound of rushing waterfalls echoes through the verdant maze. This isn't your typical nature documentary setting. What you're about to witness defies every rule of the wild we thought we understood. In this primeval sanctuary where life and death dance on the edge of a heartbeat, a mother's love would be tested in ways that challenge the very foundations of survival. It's not about the food chain or territorial disputes. It's about something far more primal, more shocking than any predator-prey encounter you've ever seen. Deep within Mbongo's most inaccessible valleys, where few humans have ever set foot, mountain gorilla families have thrived for countless generations. Here, among the towering ferns and moss-covered rocks, these gentle giants have created their own world of complex social bonds and fierce family loyalty. The morning mist clings to the forest floor as troops move silently through their domain, unaware that this day would become legendary. But in nature's theater, even the most peaceful moments can explode into chaos. What happened in these ancient woods would rewrite everything we know about maternal instinct, leaving wildlife researchers speechless and challenging our understanding of courage in the animal kingdom. Valleys. In the heart of Mbongo's mist-shrouded valleys lived Kasi's troop, a family of mountain gorillas who had claimed this ancient territory as their sanctuary. Kasi, the dominant silverback, stood like a living monument among the towering trees. His massive frame, weighing nearly 400 pounds, was crowned by a distinctive silver saddle that caught the morning light filtering through the canopy. Deep scars across his weathered face told stories of countless battles fought to protect his family, while his intelligent dark eyes held the wisdom of a leader who had guided his troop through seasons of plenty and hardship. But the true heart of this family was Amara, a gentle yet formidable mother whose amber eyes radiated both tenderness and fierce determination. Her sleek black coat gleamed in the dappled sunlight as she moved with surprising grace despite her powerful build. Amara had earned her place as the troop's most respected female through years of nurturing young ones and displaying an almost supernatural intuition for danger. Her massive hands, capable of incredible strength, were more often seen delicately grooming her offspring or gathering tender shoots for the family's meals. Clinging to Amara's back was little Django, her precious 3-month-old infant whose curious nature and playful spirit brought joy to the entire troop. Django's tiny fingers constantly explored his mother's fur, his bright eyes taking in every detail of the forest world around him. Despite his small size, he already showed signs of the intelligence and courage that ran through his bloodline. The troop moved through their territory with practiced ease, following well-worn paths between feeding sites. Older juveniles playfully wrestled in clearings while the adults methodically stripped bark from favorite trees. This morning began like countless others, peaceful, predictable, secure in the rhythm of forest life. Yet beneath this tranquil surface, something was stirring in the shadows. In the dense undergrowth where ancient logs lay rotting and vines created impenetrable tangles, a presence moved with deadly silence, completely undetected by the gorilla family above. The sea-diz. The morning had settled into its familiar rhythm when Kasi's massive head suddenly lifted from his feeding. His nostrils flared as he caught something in the air, not a scent, but a subtle shift in the forest's natural harmony. The silverback's keen senses, honed by years of protecting his family, detected the slightest anomaly in their peaceful sanctuary. Around him, the troop continued their leisurely breakfast, methodically stripping tender leaves from branches and savoring the sweet inner bark of their favorite trees. Young Django had wandered a few feet from his mother's side, his tiny hands grasping at colorful insects that danced in the filtered sunlight. But Kessie's attention was focused elsewhere, scanning the dense undergrowth with growing unease. Amara noticed her mate's alertness immediately. A mother's intuition kicked in as she watched Kessie's body language shift from relaxed to cautious. She quietly moved closer to little Django, her amber eyes following Kessie's gaze toward a particularly thick patch of vegetation where massive fallen logs created natural tunnels beneath layers of creeping vines. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. Birds that had been chattering moments before fell silent, even the ever-present hum of insects seemed muted. It was as if nature was trying to warn them of something lurking just beyond their perception. Other members of the troop began to sense the disturbance. Heads turned toward the area that had captured Casey's attention. Juvenile gorillas stopped their playful wrestling, their dark eyes wide with curiosity and growing concern. The elderly matriarch, Casey's mother, made a low rumbling sound. Not quite alarm, but definitely awareness that something was amiss. Django, oblivious to the mounting tension, continued his innocent exploration. His small form moved closer to the edge of their feeding area, drawn by the colorful flash of a butterfly that seemed to dance just out of reach. What the family didn't realize was that this beautiful distraction was leading the curious infant directly toward the source of Casey's unease. In the shadows beneath the fallen logs, something ancient and deadly was stirring, its cold eyes fixed on the smallest member of the gorilla family. What happened next unfolded in terrifying slow motion. As little Django reached for the dancing butterfly, the forest floor beneath him suddenly erupted with movement. From the shadowy tangle of fallen logs and dense vegetation, a massive African rock python emerged like a nightmare made real. The serpent was colossal, nearly 20 feet of pure muscle and deadly precision. Its body, thick as a tree trunk, bore the distinctive diamond patterns of a mature predator that had ruled these forests for decades. The python's scales glistened with moisture from the humid undergrowth, each one catching fragments of sunlight as the creature moved with fluid, hypnotic grace. Before anyone could react, the giant snake struck with lightning speed, its powerful coils wrapped around tiny Django in one swift, calculated motion. The baby gorilla's startled cry pierced the morning air, a sound so heart-wrenching it seemed to shatter the very soul of the forest. His small arms flailed helplessly as the python's muscular body began the deadly process of constriction. The snake's head, larger than a grown man's fist, rose above its victim with cold, reptilian intelligence. Its black eyes showed no emotion, no malice, only the ancient primal drive to survive. The forked tongue flicked out repeatedly, tasting the air as it assessed its prize. This was nature at its most brutally efficient. Django's desperate squeals grew weaker as the python's coils tightened with methodical precision. Each loop of the serpent's body was positioned with deadly expertise, applying pressure to vital areas while maintaining the perfect grip. The baby gorilla's tiny fingers grasped frantically at the smooth scales, but found no purchase against the relentless squeeze. The entire attack had taken less than 30 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. The forest that moments before had been filled with peaceful family sounds now echoed with the most primal sound in nature, a mother's scream of anguish as she witnessed her child in mortal danger. What happened next would redefine everything the scientific world thought they knew about maternal instinct in the wild. The entire troop froze in a moment of paralyzing shock. Casey's massive frame trembled with conflicting instincts. His paternal drive to protect warring against the primal knowledge that attacking a python of this size could be suicide. His powerful fists clenched and unclenched as he struggled with a decision no silverback should ever have to make. Other family members scattered in different directions, their peaceful mornings shattered by the horrifying scene before them. Some juveniles climbed frantically up nearby trees, their panicked hoots echoing through the canopy. The elderly matriarch stood motionless, her wise eyes reflecting the terrible understanding that in nature, even the most innocent can become prey. But it was Amara's reaction that would haunt anyone who witnessed it. The mother gorilla's entire body convulsed with anguish as she watched her baby disappearing within the python's deadly embrace. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Her amber eyes, usually so gentle and nurturing, transformed into something wild and desperate. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to act, yet conventional wisdom dictated that confronting such a predator was certain death. The internal battle raging within Amara was visible in every trembling muscle. Her powerful hands opened and closed repeatedly, as if rehearsing movements she hadn't yet decided to make. Guttural sounds escaped her throat, not quite roars, not quite sobs, but something primal that spoke to the deepest bonds between mother and child. Around her, the forest itself seemed to recoil from the tragedy unfolding. Birds that had been singing moments before fled in terror. Even the insects fell silent, as if nature was holding its breath, waiting to see how this impossible situation would resolve. Casey took a tentative step forward, then stopped. His experience told him that pythons of this size were virtually unstoppable once they began constricting. Logic dictated retreat, regrouping, perhaps finding another mate and starting over. But the sound of his offspring's weakening cries made such rational thoughts impossible. What none of them realized was that Amara had already made her decision. In the depths of her maternal soul, something was awakening that would shock the natural world. High in the forest canopy, completely unaware of the drama unfolding below, Dr. Nalani Kimani was conducting her routine behavioral observations. The primatologist had spent the last 3 years studying gorilla family dynamics in Mbongo, perched in her carefully constructed observation platform 30 feet above the forest floor. Her weathered notebook was filled with meticulous observations of feeding patterns, social interactions, and territorial behaviors. Through her high-powered binoculars, Dr. Kimani had been tracking the peaceful morning activities of Kesey's troop when the python attack erupted. At first, she couldn't process what she was seeing. Her scientific mind struggled to categorize the scene below as her hands trembled while adjusting the focus. "This can't be happening," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible above the chaos erupting in the forest. In all her years of fieldwork across Africa, she had never witnessed anything like this. Python attacks on gorilla infants were theoretically possible, but practically unheard of. The size differential, the location, the timing, everything about this encounter defied conventional understanding. Dr. Kimani frantically reached for her video equipment, knowing that whatever was about to unfold would either end in tragedy or potentially rewrite textbooks on primate behavior. Her fingers fumbled with the camera controls as she tried to document what could be a once-in-a-lifetime scientific observation. From her elevated vantage point, she could see details that the gorillas on the ground could not. The python's positioning, the calculated precision of its attack, the way it had chosen the exact moment when the infant was most vulnerable. She also had a clear view of something else. Amara's body language was changing in ways that didn't match any behavioral pattern in her research. "Come on, move back," Dr. Kimani found herself whispering urgently, as if the gorillas could hear her. "It's too dangerous." But even as she spoke, she realized she was about to witness something that would challenge everything she thought she knew about maternal behavior in the wild. The scientist in her demanded objective observation, but the human in her was about to witness something extraordinary. What happened next defied every law of nature that Dr. Kimani had studied. Instead of retreating or waiting for Kesey to lead a coordinated response, Amara made a decision that sent shockwaves through the scientific community watching from above. The mother gorilla's amber eyes locked onto the python with laser-like intensity, and something primal ignited within her massive frame. Without warning, Amara charged directly at the 20-foot serpent with a speed that seemed impossible for her size. Her powerful legs propelled her forward like a freight train, crashing through underbrush and scattering debris in her wake. The sound of her approach was thunderous, a combination of splintering wood, rustling vegetation, and the deep, guttural war cry that erupted from her chest. The python, startled by this unprecedented assault, momentarily loosened its grip on little Django. Its ancient reptilian brain had never encountered such direct aggression from a gorilla. Pythons were accustomed to their victims struggling, but this was something entirely different, a calculated attack from one of the forest's most powerful inhabitants. Dr. Kimani's hand shook as she adjusted her camera, trying to capture every second of this extraordinary encounter. "This is impossible," she breathed, her scientific training warring with the evidence before her eyes. Gorillas simply didn't attack predators of this caliber. The risk-to-benefit ratio made no evolutionary sense. But Amara wasn't operating on evolutionary logic. She was driven by something far more powerful. As she closed the distance to the python, her massive hands reached out with surgical precision. Instead of wild flailing, her movements were calculated and deliberate, targeting specific points along the serpent's body. Cassie and the rest of the troop watched in stunned silence as their usually gentle family member transformed into something they had never seen before. The peaceful mother who groomed their young and gathered their food had become a force of nature, willing to face certain death for her child. The forest held its breath as two of nature's most powerful forces prepared for a battle that would redefine everything science thought it knew about maternal instinct. Paces. The collision between mother and serpent was earth-shattering. Mara's 400-pound frame slammed into the python with the force of a runaway boulder, sending both creatures tumbling across the forest floor. The impact was so violent that ancient trees shook and birds exploded from the canopy in terror. What followed was the most incredible display of maternal fury ever documented in the wild. Amara's massive hands found purchase on the python's thick body, her fingers digging deep into the reptile's muscular flesh. With strength that defied comprehension, she began the impossible task of unwrapping the deadly coils from her baby. The python, now fighting for its own survival, thrashed wildly in response. Its powerful tail whipped through the air, striking trees with sounds like gunshots. But Amara held on with supernatural determination, her amber eyes never leaving her child's increasingly still form. Every loop she managed to loosen gave little Django precious seconds to breathe. Dr. Kimani watched in absolute disbelief as the battle raged below. The python, sensing it was outmatched by sheer determination if not size, attempted to shift tactics. It released part of its grip on the infant to coil around Amara's torso, trying to crush the interfering mother. This was exactly what Amara had been waiting for. With lightning reflexes, she grabbed the python's head in both hands. The serpent's powerful jaws snapped at her face, missing by inches as she held it at arm's length. Her biceps bulged with effort as she fought to control the writhing predator. Muscles that had evolved for tree climbing and gentle parenting were now engaged in mortal combat. The critical moment arrived when Amara managed to create enough space between the python's coils and Django's tiny body. With one hand still gripping the serpent's head, she used her free arm to pull her baby to safety. Little Django gasped as air filled his lungs again, his weak cries the most beautiful sound in the forest. But the battle was far from over. The enraged python now focused its full fury on the mother who had dared to challenge millions of years of predatory dominance. With Django safely cradled against her chest, Amara faced the python's final desperate assault. The massive serpent, now purely driven by survival instinct, made one last attempt to reclaim its prize. But something had fundamentally changed in this ancient equation of predator and prey. The mother gorilla's protective fury had awakened something that transcended natural law. Using every ounce of her incredible strength, Amara grabbed the python behind its head and began to systematically uncoil its body from around her own torso. Her movements were no longer frantic but methodical, almost surgical in their precision. Each loop she removed weakened the serpent's position until finally, with a tremendous heave, she hurled the 20-foot predator away from her family. The python landed heavily among the fallen logs, its powerful body writhing as it tried to regain composure. For a moment, the ancient predator seemed to consider another attack, its cold eyes fixed on the gorilla family. But something in Amara's stance, the way she stood protectively over her infant, her massive frame still trembling with adrenaline, communicated a message that transcended species barriers. This was no longer prey. This was a force that would fight to the death. Slowly, deliberately, the python began to retreat into the dense undergrowth. Its survival instincts, honed over millions of years, recognized when a battle was no longer worth fighting. Within moments, the massive serpent had disappeared into the shadows as silently as it had emerged, leaving only disturbed earth and broken vegetation as evidence of the extraordinary confrontation. Amara immediately turned her attention to little Django, her gentle hands carefully examining every inch of his tiny body. The infant was bruised and exhausted but alive, his small chest rising and falling with precious breath. Cassie approached cautiously, his own eyes wide with amazement at what his mate had accomplished. Dr. Kimani continued filming from her perch, tears streaming down her face as she documented the reunion. The scientific implications of what she had witnessed would rewrite textbooks. But in this moment, she was simply a witness to the most powerful force in nature, a mother's love. Maze. Dr. Kimani's footage would eventually reach laboratories and universities across the globe, sparking debates that continue to this day. What Amara accomplished in those terrifying minutes challenged fundamental assumptions about primate behavior, maternal instinct, and the supposed limitations of interspecies conflict. Her actions didn't just save her child, they rewrote the scientific understanding of what love can accomplish when pushed beyond all rational boundaries. In the weeks that followed, little Django made a complete recovery under his mother's watchful care. The bruises faded, but the bond between mother and child seemed to have deepened into something almost mystical. Amara's heroic act had not only rescued her infant, but had also elevated her status within the troop to something approaching legend. The story spread far beyond the misty valleys of Mbongo. Wildlife researchers, behaviorists, and naturalists around the world studied the footage frame by frame, trying to understand how a gorilla had successfully confronted and defeated one of Africa's most formidable predators. The consensus was remarkable. Maternal love had literally rewritten the laws of the jungle. But perhaps the most profound impact was on those who heard the story secondhand. In a world often dominated by headlines of conflict and despair, Amara's courage reminded humanity of something fundamental about the power of unconditional love. Her willingness to face certain death for her child resonated across species barriers, touching the hearts of parents everywhere who recognized that same fierce protectiveness within themselves. The ancient forests of Mbongo continue to whisper this tale through their towering trees. Rangers speak of it in hushed, reverent tones. Local communities have woven it into their oral traditions as a parable about the strength that lies dormant within every mother's heart. Amara's story proves that when love is truly tested, when everything precious hangs in the balance, the impossible becomes inevitable. In those critical moments, ordinary beings can transcend their limitations and achieve the extraordinary. It reminds us that the greatest force in nature isn't the strength of predators or the fury of storms, it's the unstoppable power of a parent's love. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.